watching events live in Cairo. I want to take this opportunity to pick up on that point about journalists. We're going to join Mohammed Abdel-Daim. He's with the Committee to Protect Journalists in the Middle East and North Africa. He's the program coordinator. Joins us now from the US. I mean, we're seeing for ourselves the restrictions that Egypt is trying to place on our reporters, and yet it doesn't seem to be having the intended effect.
The media blackout, or the attempted media blackout in Egypt, is frankly unprecedented in Egyptian history. And what you noted is in fact correct. In spite of everything the government is doing, in spite of the vicious beatings that reporters from Aljerzza and the German media and British media and French media and local Egyptian media have received on the streets of Cairo, the media blackout is not entirely effective, because we were on the air right now and we're talking about it, and Ayman Muhyiddin is in Cairo, is on the air, and the people at Aljerzza Arabic and for numerous other TV stations remain on the air in spite of the cutting of cell phone communications, in spite of the shutting down of the internet, and in spite of the monstrous violence that has been exercised against journalists on the streets.
And this, of course, is not a country that's used to giving media freedoms.
No, absolutely not. Egypt has a long history of repression of the media, but again, I have to emphasize that what has happened in the past 3 days is unprecedented, and journalists have been arrested and severely beaten and severely injured. There are a number of cameramen and journalists who are missing. We're not sure where they are. We know they're in custody, but we don't know where they are. There are a number of people who were severely injured, some of whom are currently at the hospital. And so, yes, it's a very tenuous situation, and it's a situation that's changing all the time. And we appeal to the Egyptian government, or whatever is left of it, to frankly exercise restraint and allow the media to do their job. What they're doing is ultimately self-defeating. The more difficult it becomes for people to find out what's going on out there on the street, the more people are going down into the street to find out themselves. And that's what I've been hearing from people that I've been talking to on the phone all day long.
So in a way, it's had a completely counter effect. Mohammed Abdel-Daim, thank you very much for joining us with your thoughts there from New York in the US on media freedoms. But of course, a lot of the protests in Egypt were planned over the internet, but the connection has been down for most people on Friday. It's an unprecedented move. Just before we get on to that, just bring you up to date with viewers who may have just joined us. There's some live pictures there from Cairo as darkness falls. Now, Egypt's 80 million people are connected to the rest of the world via fiber optic cables. The four main internet service providers are no longer working. So that means that schools, banks, government offices and internet cafes, as well as people's homes, are all cut off. Now, the Egypt Stock Exchange is one of very few businesses with internet access, and that's via the Noor network. That still means that 88% of people are not able to get online. Not that it's had that much effect to the situation on the streets. Let's talk about this clampdown on the internet in Egypt with Kevin Anderson. He's an expert in social media. Kevin, have you ever seen an entire country try to take its people offline?
There are precedents to this, but they're the sort of usual suspects we hear about. So in 2007, Burma took what little internet access it had and unplugged that. But I don't think many people would consider Egypt in that category of internet censorship. So it's not completely unprecedented, but definitely in Egyptian history and in most developed Western countries and most of the Middle East, they've blocked sites, but they haven't done this whole-scale shutdown.
It was too little too late, though, apparently, wasn't it? Because people were already mobilized by Facebook and Twitter. We talked about this during the Tunisia protest, just how instrumental they were in galvanizing people together, giving them a sense of empowerment. Talk us through just how much you think these social networking sites are crucial to this sort of situation.
Well, interestingly, Egypt is one of the countries where really the overlap between the internet activists and activists is almost complete. So the activists in Egypt have long been using the internet. In the past, it's been primarily blogging. And so some of the most well-known bloggers in Egypt are also very well-known political activists. So this actually has several years in history. And, several years ago when activists were protesting for judicial reform in Egypt, there were a number of bloggers who were detained during that period. So Egypt actually has enjoyed a long history of internet activism, and I think now they actually have a very sophisticated way of not just using Facebook and Twitter, which are more current tools, but also SMS and mobile networks, which have also been affected in this clampdown.
Kevin, thank you very much for your thoughts there. Well, it appears that our own correspondent in Cairo is feeling the brunt of the media crackdown in Egypt. Ayman Mohyeddin in Cairo, what's happening?
Well, there you're seeing live pictures, a very historic image there, really, because the riot police that you see in that formation completely fell back. They were much closer to the building where we were, much closer to the protesters near the Hilton Hotel, but almost in a very iconic image. They have now fallen back below the bridge, the 6th of October bridge. You can see the protesters are actually very close to the riot police, and there are no clashes. There is nothing being thrown at the riot police. There are no attacks. What you're hearing are the slogans and the chants of the protesters. They have been saying down with the regime in Arabic. They've also been chanting God is great. They've been saying they want to live in dignity and in honor. They want to earn a decent living. So those images you're seeing there, again, we're just a short few minutes away from the beginning of this imposed curfew that's supposed to take place at 6 p.m. local time. But what you're seeing, at least the police has given ground to the protesters. Now, it's very possible that in any second, in fact, yes, indeed, it is. You can see there. What's that? Okay, listen, I just want to tell you that it seems that police are knocking on our door. It's in bed. ما تفتحيش الباب. لا خليها. Sorry, Laura, just because there were some people knocking on the door outside and we weren't sure if it's police or not, but we were told that we are told the police is on their way up to our office. They have just been to the office of our Aljerzza Arabic colleagues. So I will stay on the air if I can until the police come and knock on the door. They're knocking on our door as I'm told, but we're in an inside office. We're going to keep these images for you guys live until we are actually forced off the air either by the police or if our signal is somehow interrupted. But what you're seeing there on the streets of Cairo just a few minutes before the curfew is being imposed, protesters and riot police still going back and forth, the chants from the protesters still as loud as ever.
I mean, as you mentioned just a little earlier, in 10 minutes' time we are going to see that curfew come down on capital Cairo, but it does not appear that those protesters are in any mood to be going home. Ayman, can you still hear us? We're watching live pictures broadcast from our Aljerzza bureau in downtown Cairo. Darkness has fallen over the city, but the protesters are still out on the street. We understand that the police have been knocking on the door of our bureau, telling us to turn the cameras off. We've been broadcasting live pictures of the protests in Cairo for the past 5 hours. The security forces clearly aware of what we're doing and unhappy with it. Now, apparently being told to turn cameras off. Ayman Mohyeddin, what's happening now?
Well, we just, as I was saying a short while ago, we were told that police is in the building. We were told that Aljerzza Arabic police did visit the Aljerzza Arabic office a short while ago. There were some police that came, knocked on our door. We're in an inside office, really on the balcony, just broadcasting these images for you. We've moved the camera inside, so you're still getting a sense of the city, but we're still a little bit further away. The images are still as they were. We're just a few minutes away from that curfew that's supposed to go in place. I don't know if you can hear outside. We did have to move the camera inside, so it may affect the audio, but you should be able to hear still the chants and the rants of the protesters as well as the explosions there. Now, these are really unprecedented times for Egypt. I don't think that anyone that has experienced anything like this before, even the bread riots of the 1970s that angered so many and drew so many of people, thousands, to the streets, are not on par with these protests, I'm told, by people who lived through that and experienced that. So these are very, very trying times. It's going to be very interesting to see how the government of